forward. And their creativity in that and their ability to do that is what's going to make them the greatest self that they can be. And that's what I try to implement them through just hanging out with them sometimes. That's all it takes. It don't even take a lot of hard work if you just hanging out with them and talking to them, because they don't have nothing on their slate. So whatever you give them, they're a sponge to it. So all you got to do is hang out with them and talk to them. And, give them the classwork as you give them the classwork. But when you're talking to them, if you really talk to them, you can get a lot done with a child. But if it's just me in there and a bunch of hard-working women that's getting no help, man, what can I say? It's a hundred educators in my room and like 4 males, and one is the janitor. So what do you want me to say? We just in there, and all of us working hard because we love the women that work there. They working hard. Teachers get a hard time. Parents give them a hard time. But when them teachers close them doors and ain't nobody in there but them, you better not go in there and say nothing about them. Them some hard-working people trying to piece this disenfranchised community of kids into some well-productive citizens. So I try to bring that self-discovery piece and that self-discipline and just knowing thyself. And as much knowledge as I can give them, I'm going to give it to them, and I'm going to give it to them straight with no chaser, and they're going to receive it because what else do they know? They only know what you're telling them.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you remember the poem that you did that was a poem toward your child? Because I can't think of the title of the poem, but I know that every time I hear it, that poem always seems to resonate with a lot of people. I think you even made it into like a whole play at one point, but I know it resonated with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, that's I Got a Daughter Now?
Yeah, that's the one.
I you want to hear that now?
If you got it, and if you can remember it.
Yeah, I got it. I am poetry. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I am poetry. But we ain't even going to talk about poetry and the way poets use their gifts or nothing like that. I got a daughter now. I mean, I really got a daughter now. And I'm thinking that some people want me to tell her that equal opportunity is the same thing as equality. Now, that would be silly of me, for that may never be her reality. And I know she going to have and take her opportunities, but somehow, some way, I still refuse to just let her be. Another disenfranchised black female brought about by the atrocities of mankind. So there are a couple of things that I'm going to tell her that she must keep on her mind, like the universal laws in order to keep her soul divine, and to let no one control her time, nor space, and to keep herself chaste, because her virginity is probably the only thing that will ever really be a friend to she. And if she give that up or have it taken to a place where she get too caught up emotionally, a true friend she may never see. I got a daughter now. I mean, I really got a daughter now. And I was feeling kind of strange when the heavens blessed me to have this daughter. Matter of fact, my mind was going kind of deranged when the heavens blessed me to have this daughter. So now I be sitting at home thinking to myself, how am I going to raise her in this new world order? So before I let this society take my child and hate my child and some grown man rape my child, I will look to the heavens and ask my Father to forsake my child, take my child, break my child into little bits and pieces. He can feed her precious soul and body right back to the earth, because I don't want her walking around some of these people with a weaker thesis. We not our brother's keeper, so who's going to keep her? When all is done and I'm gone and she's alone, who's going to keep her? I got a daughter now. I mean, I really got a daughter now. So if you're not raising your son to be a true good son, you better tell that bad little boy to avoid her now. It's so hard to give my little queen praise when I can already see no little kings are being raised. And I would, and I should, and I could tell her to keep herself covered. But then I would have to tell her that a lot of women who are covered, they just be undercover. How in my own lifetime I truly did discover that even those who say they do it for spiritual reasons, They be simply hiding the heathen, and they don't practice. They don't practice what they believe in. So you wear what you want. You go where you want. You be who you want. You just try your best not to deceive men and listen to your own heartbeat as your own heart beats and spins. Because I got a daughter now. I mean, I really got a daughter now. And she is my seed. So I'm the one that's giving her some water now. So she can grow and blossom and bloom and never be consumed nor confused into chasing the wrong American dream. Because, see, my daughter, she is so much more than an American queen. So when she go to sleep, I tell her, sweetheart, just learn to interpret your own dreams. And when it seems that no one sees it your way, don't worry about it. They just forgot what being a virtuous woman means. But, see, I got some ancestors. That mean my baby girl, she got some ancestors, and they got sores on their feet that fester from walking upright, back straight, eyes open, no fears, no fright. They was just keepers of the light. So my baby girl, she will be a keeper of the light. And everybody that's listening to this blog talk radio show tonight, please be a keeper of the light, because I got a daughter now, and she watching you. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Tim, and definitely one of the powerful poems that you always do. And I know that you probably had a lot of thoughts about that poem during this current kind of climate that we're in, where we've had folks that have accused, like the judge that just got appointed, of being involved in all kinds of abusive situations. And when you've heard about what was going on with Cosby and Harvey, the producer, and things of that nature. So I'm sure that as you've been seeing all this stuff in the news, that point probably even resonates more with you these days.
Right, man, because my daughter, she's 13 now. And, you know, everybody, they know what 13 is. Right. So as her curiosity opens up to the world, I understand why that piece was written while she was in the womb. That poem was written while she was in the womb. So it's 13 years later, and that poem is even more relevant as she grows, because it's a constant reminder of her needing that self-love first, and needing that father's love, and needing her mother's love, and needing to know love from the perspective of how it moves in action versus misappropriating it or misassociating it with conversation from men, or in this day and time, women. So with all these things that she's open to, and all these unlimited possibilities based on what my mother and father taught me, what I learned from my grandparents, and all of them are ancestors now. So how can I take what my ancestors gave me and make sure that those things are instilled in my daughter as a shield of protection as she make her choices? Some choices I'm going to have nothing to do with. But if I can instill in her the necessary knowledge to navigate through the choices she make, even the choices that we might deem to be bad, she'll be okay in the long run. So that's kind of what I work with her on. And in this climate, it might even be better for it with all the pressure that comes from things like the Me Too movement and the Cosby situation and the Kavanaugh situation. Even men and young men and mothers and fathers are going to have to teach their boys that they're going to have to navigate the path of love, sex, and relationships, and interacting with people for social reasons. They're going to have to tread them waters carefully. And so as generations come, what kind of knowledge that those generations have been instilled with is going to make the difference in some of their experiences.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I try to give to my daughter, you know.
Yeah, and you do a good job of that, and I definitely think that you're one of the better parents that I've seen out there. So definitely you do a good job of raising the kids that you have and everything. So I've always thought that you were an amazing parent. But you also talked about spending time at Bruce's towards the No Bookstore when the No Bookstore was open, and definitely spending time around some of the other activists around. Lately, we've been hearing a lot of talk about art and activism. What do you think? What kind of role do you think art should play in activism, and do you think it's doing a good enough job in terms of being an activist too?
Art, to me, is supposed to play a continuous thread of continuous, perpetual, righteous, equality, justice type of motion at all times. And in order to get real change through art, there can be no deviation from that type of activism. So if I go out and I do a poem about I got a daughter now, and that starts a chain of energy moving towards strengthening our young women as well as educating our young adult women through that piece of poetry, I cannot change from that thread of energy throughout my lifetime because I have started something in motion. Now, after I do that poem, every poem that relates to young women should be along that same thread of energy. If I break off from that and go do an erotic poem and talk about all these nasty, disgusting, gross things that I'm going to do to this woman behind closed doors with my art, it's going to change that thread of energy that I had already created because I have now produced another thread going in a different direction. That's why art doesn't bring about the change that it should bring about because, in my view, and I've been around poets and spoken word for 20 years, so I can say it. Most of the poets and artists and a lot of so-called activists that I know feels like just because you're an artist, you have a poetic license to do anything you want to do. But to me, that's not what a poetic license means. A poetic license, just like a driver's license, the way they sell it to you, is it's a privilege.
Right.
You was given that gift. That's a privilege. So you don't have a poetic license to do anything you want to do. So if you're going to call yourself an activist and you are involved in equality and justice and righteousness, that has to be your continuous thread of energy throughout your lifetime in order for it to be as effective as you want it to be. Now, I'm not saying it won't be effective and it won't produce change, but if I'm 47 years old, I've been living long enough to know that hasn't much changed.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the other things that I just had a post on Facebook that one of our author people was talking about, and I know that this has been an issue with you as well. I just wanted to know what you had to say about this. Was I was reading some of the posts that Monica Burns, who's a well-known author, was putting out, and she was talking about the fact that too often we also don't want to pay our artists, that we want them to do it for free or not get the rewards that they are justly due. So you want them to write a poem, or you want them to perform, or you want them to actually do a lot of work, but you don't want to find any sort of reward to that when you're asking them to do these things. Have you run across this problem as much as Monica talked about it? And I know there's some other theater people that have talked about it as well. How have you addressed that? Where there are people if you get a plumber service, you're going to pay the plumber according to the plumber's rates. But we have a lot of people, and even my dad, who's an artist, talks about this sometimes, that people want stuff for free.
Hey, Mark Lee.
Uh-huh.
You done seen me. We can say. I'll just say for the sake of radio. You done seen me thousands of times in Durham.
Right.
Out of 1,000 and some times that you've seen me, I only been paid a couple times.
Wow.
So, and I'm gonna respect those people because I can really name them. Right. Vegas Don from Campaign for Change, he pays me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He get a hard time out with all the activism he doing for gang violence and rehabilitation of those coming out the prison system and things of that nature. He does a lot of work himself, but he pays me. If Betty Murkison calls upon me, she pays me, and she pays me well.
Right.
and there's a natural hair salon